Welcome to Full Discourse. I'm Josh Elkin, and this is a space where I invite guests of all walks of the food industry to discuss major moments in food's vast internet history. But before we jump in, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you'll never miss another episode. And maybe, if we're good and you don't hate me,
just maybe,
you'll leave a nice review or comment to support the show. In this episode, we're discussing real-life adaptations of games and anime in food. This topic may feel niche to some of you, but I feel confident in assuming we all would kind of love to take a bite of food from a specific video game or a cartoon or an anime show, like something from Calcifer's breakfast in Howl's Moving Castle to the Minecraft cake. I was just about to be like, I don't know what this is. Like, do you know what this is? Just because I'm showing my age here, we're gonna let my guest Jimmy Wong talk about what type of foods from what type of games and anime. And Jimmy, what are those games and types of things?
Should I just do the whole thing?
No, you could just start from there.
Well, there's a lot of anime food. There's video game food, Studio Ghibli movies for those that love Hayao Miyazaki. You've got Howl's Moving Castle, Calcifer's Breakfast. You've got Minecraft cake from the popular game Minecraft. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's, food in every single movie almost. And a lot of anime and video games have food that you can eat in the game or you eat on screen. And it's like, wow, that looks delicious. How would I eat that myself?
You know what, Jimmy? I appreciate that little input right there.
Thank you, brother.
Because the desire to eat these foods in real life is obviously vast. Like,
yes.
Yeah, I remember one of the first ever, not even first ever, but like big lure internet food. Movie food was the chocolate cake from Matilda.
Yep.
But
big time.
Obviously all the stuff from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yep.
But what really got me back in the day was all that like buttercream from Hook.
Oh yeah, the imaginary play food,
the fake food that like clearly was buttercream.
Yeah,
hopefully.
I don't know what it was, but they had a lot of it.
There's a lot of it, and I'd like to think it was buttercream because buttercream's delicious.
It is delicious.
Today, on today's episode, we have actor, we have musician, we have Magic the Gathering wizard.
Nice.
But more importantly, a dear friend of mine for a long time, Jimmy Wong, to discuss the ultimate food and drink icons of a fantasy world, games, cartoons, movies,
blah, blah, blah.
All these types of things that are fiction, which is interesting because, Jimmy, you had a show on the internet for a decade called Feast of Fiction.
That's right. And you worked on it for a little bit as
well.
You were
a couple years.
A very close part to that show. Yeah. In fact, you were like the replacement host for a bit because I was gone filming.
When I had to step in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was great.
Jimmy knows very well how sensitive it is for the fandom to get these things right. We know that the nerd culture, are very, I don't even know what else to call it, but nerd culture in general are very particular when it comes to being accurate.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
And that's a very hard thing to do because when you're dealing with fictional food,
there's no recipe.
Sure, but a lot of it is interpretation.
Oh, yeah. Almost all of it is outside of what you're basically combing for clues, and then you're making everything else up outside of that.
So Jimmy started a show 10 years ago called Feast of Fiction, but you've done a lot of things. Like what else have you done? What's your life been for the last 13 years, and where are you at right now?
I have been making video content for a long time, coming up on 13 years now. Got started all the way back in 2010 when I moved to Los Angeles. I originally wanted to be an actor, realized that was a bad idea. Still continued that work for 10 plus years, but started making videos at the same time because it was a way to have actual sovereignty over your work. And so I just launched on a content creation career from there. I started with music. I went into making a cooking show that we mentioned earlier called Feast of Fiction. And I also started a podcast called The Command Zone, which is all about this popular card game called Magic the Gathering, which also has some food in it, by the way. But yeah, that's been my journey. It's been that many years of just making videos online and building communities and doing a lot of consulting work here and there for people as well. Because it turns out a lot of people want to make videos for the internet. Oh yeah, I was in this show called Video Game High School that a lot of people know me from. I pop up in a lot of random places, is what I've heard from people. So don't be surprised if you see me in like a random Try Guys video or in a podcast or in something else. I'm everywhere.
I think that's really, really cool. I think that it's rare, at least for me. Actually, I guess it's not that rare considering like every guest I've had on this podcast has been doing this for as long as I have, which is around 13 years.
Yeah,
it's so funny, but that actually
it's
happens.
Exactly that, yeah.
But we were talking about this earlier, and I didn't even know that the first video for Feast of Fiction was an adaptation of a Skyrim episode.
Yeah. Or a video game, Skyrim.
That's what I meant. Sorry,
Yeah.
a video game, Skyrim.
That was the first episode, though.
So-
And it may have just been a one-off. It could have been a single video to be like, cool, that was it. Never do this again.
So that's what I was going to ask you. Like, what made you decide to be like, you know what? I'm going to, like, obviously you had experience making videos, but what made you decide, like, okay, I'm going to attempt to make this video game recipe in real life and just see what happens?
So it originally was like a kitchen table talk between me and my brother. His name is Freddie. And a lot of people were at the time, like myself, wondering like, what should we do for a YouTube channel? What should we make next? Because like the field was wide open. There was not that much happening on YouTube compared to today. So we like started talking about what could be done and what hasn't been done yet. And so I was like, what if you could make a channel that was just recreating recipes from video games, movies, anime, cartoons, books, blah, blah, blah. And we were like, yeah, what if you could? And at that point, Skyrim had just come out for the first time. It's since been re-released like 17 times, but it was a really popular game. And in it was this recipe, because in the game, there's like all these books that you can find. And the writers put a lot of work into it because some of the books are like full on mini novellas. But there was one that was a cookbook and it had this recipe for something called the Sunlight Souffle. So we're like, why not start there? And I also have to give a big shout out to Ashley Adams, who's my co-host.
Mm-hmm.
I met her on this random birthday trip to Disneyland. And not my birthday, it was someone else's. We just happened to be mutual friends. And I was like trying to find someone that could help me be my co-host for this thing because I did not know how to really cook at all. And I was more of like the geek side of things. I knew about the game. I knew about the source material. So she also came in and helped create that recipe. And I think it was our second episode, which was the Minecraft cake, like a very poor version of the Minecraft cake. We've since redone it quite a bit. So without her help and without sort of the original ideation, nothing would have come together.
Right.
So I'd say those are like the main factors that contributed to being a reason why we made this show and kept it going.
Yeah, and Ashley, the contrast between the two of you and the chemistry is amazing.
Thanks.
You know?
Yeah, Ashley's like this warm Texas girl that's got this sweet summer vibe, and I'm like a nerdy, like geeked out dude. So it like has a nice balance.
And Ashley didn't really like have. She wasn't like certainly not as well.
She was basically not versed
at all
in any of this.
She knew how to
stuff.
cook.
Yeah, she knew how to cook.
Yeah.
She knew how to make really awesome baking. Any of these things on this table, she could like bake it into an edible version.
Right.
Like she had this amazing ability to just be super crafty and to really be creative with the way she makes her food. So that was like the element that I was sorely missing. Like I had no idea what fondant was, and I had no idea how to use it and make it because I knew I wanted to make a Minecraft cake. And looking at it, I was like, I think I need this thing called fondant, but I have no idea how this works.
Yeah.
So she was a big part in actually helping to code all those recipes and figure it out.
I mean, that's the cool thing about this industry, right? Like now you know how to cook.
Yes.
For sure you know how to cook. 10
Definitely.
years later, like for sure you know how to cook. And you know what fondant is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I hate working with it.
That's the worst. It's interesting because you bring in someone who knows how to cook. You have the knowledge of choosing topics and finding fiction.
Yep.
You have the knowledge of finding recipes in things like Skyrim video game. How important was it to, and not necessarily just important, but how hard was it to interpret these items? Like, yeah, Skyrim's going to give you a recipe, but in order to make it real in reality, like there's a lot of like of your own interpretation that goes into that, right?
Yeah, they didn't like write out the recipe in that game very specifically. It was like pretty much like a checklist of things to do. So there's always moments in between when you have to be like, okay, I think they mean bake it for like, I don't know, 20 minutes. And you like look up a bunch of other recipes. How long do you bake a souffle for? And hilariously, the recipe in the game of Skyrim had like a ridiculous amount of nutmeg in it, like a pound or something.
Careful.
Just like absurd. Like, and we didn't know if it was a typo or not, because I looked it up and it turns out you can hallucinate if you take too much nutmeg.
What was the dish called again?
Sunlight souffle.
Sounds like
So yeah, maybe you were supposed to see the sunlight.
Yeah.
I don't know.
like that's some sort of light.
Yeah, so we like reduced it to a reasonable amount of nutmeg. So there's always that decision you have to make. Because otherwise, if you make something inedible, it's also not that fun, because part of the whole eating experience when you're watching a video of people making food is them eating it. That's like part of the experience.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say.
And you want to make it good, because if someone wants to recreate it, you obviously also provided the recipe.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And I would say don't look at any of the recipes in like the first 4 or 5 years of the channel. They're all okay. We started paying a lot more attention to making sure that the recipes were great.
Yeah.
Like after the 3rd or 4th year of making the stuff, because it was just like we were just kind of rushing through sometimes and being like, okay, this looks good enough. It's more about what the game's from. So we like it took a while, but we eventually found the balance between a great recipe and then a great looking end result.
When I think about that, I'm like, half the audience probably just wants to watch it being made.
I would say more than half. I would say like 90 to 95% of the audience just want to see like, I love SpongeBob SquarePants and I want to see you make this thing from SpongeBob.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then 2 to 3% are like, I actually want to make this myself.
Right. I mean, I experienced that too doing Epic Mealtime. Like,
yeah. Oh, I
people
mean,
were,
that
people were just
for
living
sure.
vicariously through us having to eat
Yeah.
this crazy shit, you know?
Yeah.
We're going to talk a little bit about like other and older video games and like the kind of like history a little bit of food in the video games.
Food's been around forever in movies, video games. If you start, at first I was like, there's no way we're going to make more than 10 episodes of this show. We're going to run out.
Yeah.
And then we quickly realized that we were never going to run out
It's
of
impossible.
ideas. Yeah, because the moment that people realized that they could also suggest something in the comments, it was game over in terms of like having this be a finite thing.
Right.
There's just always something else. And you're always like, wow, I didn't even think of that. But that's a very popular thing. And then you'd make the video and it'd get a ton of views. You're like, holy crap, I never would have thought about this. And then the next week, the exact same thing over and over again. I thought we were going to run out. This is not the case.
I mean, even in the couple years that I worked with you, it was an abundance. It was constantly like things popping in like, oh, we can actually do that. Or like you take an element of something else, you make that or whatever it may be, right? So like the popularity of food-based games dating back all the way to like, believe it, obviously Pac-Man.
Yep.
1980s.
Literal wow is like eating food the whole time.
They're eating or whatever.
And they're also eating, no, I think it's a he because there's Miss Pac-Man.
Very true.
But
very true.
Maybe Pac-Man is just, who knows?
I'm trying to be PC here.
I mean, we got to ask Pac-Man for what they want to be identified as.
Correct. So let's just say they for now.
But they gobbled up ghosts too. They were eating everything in sight.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what this one is. I've never heard of this. Have you ever heard of
You've
Burger
never
Time?
heard of Burger Time?
Maybe I have and I just don't remember.
It's a classic arcade game. If you go to like any of those barcades, they usually have a Burger Time.
Okay.
It's like there's a burger, right? So like you got the components of the burger. It's like a bun, a lettuce, tomato, patty, cheese, and then the top bun. And then it's separated on these little like levels. And then you're this little character running around on ladders and going to each level trying to run over that part of the ingredient to have it drop down.
Yes,
and you want to have it
remember
drop
that.
all the way down to the bottom to make
I
a burger.
remember that.
And while you're getting chased around like you're in Pac-Man.
It's very Donkey Kong-like.
Yeah, it had a very Donkey Kong-like level. It's a really fun game. It's a little stressful. And then you also, I think, could throw pepper and like destroy enemies.
That's so funny.
You only had like 5 peppers or whatever to throw.
Oh, a pepper, not like...
No. It was like a sprinkling of,
Okay.
of cayenne.
Like
Not
pepper
cayenne,
dust?
just like regular pepper dust, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I didn't eat anything that wasn't beige until I was late teens.
What do you mean by beige?
Like nuggets, French fries,
You wouldn't eat French fries?
No, I would only eat beige food, yeah.
Gotcha. Is it because it always was like potato-based?
It was a combination of texture.
Yeah.
Most beige food is like fried or
I see.
bland.
Yeah.
And a combination of just like being a picky eater. Now, fast forward into my adulthood, the only thing I don't eat is tuna fish from a can.
That is pretty gross.
Tuna fish from a can?
Yeah, it's gross.
disgusting.
Anything from a can.
I like it, ironically, like a good, like, you know,
Unless you're making like tomato sauce.
a good, like, tinned fish, like a sardine.
Bro, I hate sardines.
But like, there's good versions of it these days.
Yeah, at a restaurant when it's not coming out of a tin can.
But even like high-end restaurants serve it to you in a tin can these days.
Ugh, gross.
Yeah.
Why?
This is haute couture.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know about
Have you
that
ever played video games that have food in them in terms of playing with food? Because it doesn't seem like we're people that play with our food.
Yeah.
In real life. You ever play Overcooked?
Yeah. we
We
played
may
over.
play-
Yeah,
yeah,
we've played
we
Overcooked
played
together.
Overcooked.
Hey, what a good / not good group game. Like it's
It's
great.
great.
It's a great group game, but like it can like ruin friendships.
Not as bad as like a Mario Party, but yeah, it
True.
definitely has the potential because someone has to become chef.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like there's needs
Like it's
to be
like
a leader.
real kitchen.
Yeah.
Because if everyone's just running around with their heads chopped off, it's over.
Yeah, you have to follow directions.
Yeah. And you also have to like have some amount of gaming ability to like run to the station, hold down the button to cut the stuff, and then press the button to pick it up, drop it off at the right place.
Coordination.
So that amount of coordination is required, but then also like the teamwork aspect of like, you prepare the patties, I'm going to go do this over there. We need to deliver this there.
Dishes.
Someone's got to do the dishes. Yeah.
There's
I
no
love
more
that game.
dishes.
I love that game. It's great. It's like one of the first games that's like purely based around food and multiplayer that got really popular. Because otherwise, all the other games that we're talking about, like Pac-Man or Cooking Mama, it's like a very individual experience.
Yeah.
So that's probably why I didn't play Cooking Mama, but I loved Overcooked.
I loved Overcooked also. I found that I was overwhelmed a lot of the time playing it.
Yeah, I mean, when it's like, hey, everyone, let's sit down and play a game together.
Yeah.
And then like 20 minutes later, you're exhausted.
Or you're yelling at each other.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're definitely yelling the whole
Why
time.
did you do that?
But when you do finish the level, it's like, yes, oh, amazing. But like your adrenals are shot.
Yeah.
You're like, you've exhausted a lot of chemicals.
So I didn't like, I'm not like a huge gamer. I've dabbled in a bunch of games. I've played the Call of Duties of the world.
Those have food in them too, kind of.
Yeah, in a way, I guess.
Yeah.
Do they?
Yeah, some of them have like Fallout and stuff have like Nuka-Cola, and then Call of Duty, there's always some kind of thing that you can eat as like a stimulant or something. There's something in that world. I know we've gotten Call of Duty requests before. We've never done anything from it, but
I've never played this, but I know you have the Final Fantasy franchise.
Yes, there's a ton of food in Final Fantasy.
Yeah, so I didn't know that. I didn't.
Any RPG or role playing game has food to like restore your health.
Right.
Or to like get your mana back. So there's like drinks and food. Like World of Warcraft had tons of food items.
Oh, as you just said that, it just hit my memory about like 2 games back in the day. Like I'm talking about like.
You about to show your age?
Yeah. Orange and black screen Max style, like
Yeah.
number crunchers.
Number crunchers?
I love that game.
Bro,
Okay?
you want to crunch on some numbies with me?
Or I'll crunch on numbers with you all day.
Yeah.
Or Oregon Trail.
Oregon Trail.
Yeah.
That had a lot of food in it too.
Of course it did.
You know, we got requests for Oregon Trail, and I played the crap out of that when I was like, in middle school or whatever.
Even earlier, I think, for me. For those that don't know, Number Crunchers was a math game.
Yep.
I love math. I'm very good at it.
It was like first generation computer games.
Yeah.
For teaching.
You would like
stuff.
hop on like a pyramid, and you'd have to like get the right answer to get to the next part of the
crunching
pyramid.
numbers. Yeah.
And Oregon Trail was an RPG.
Yeah, you're basically trying to cross the country and not die of dysentery.
Yeah. Pretty advanced if you think about it.
It was dark. The fact that, because like you would lose a lot. It was like, you are at a river. What do you do? It's like, are you going to convert your whole thing into a boat? Are you going to try and just make it across with your wheels? And then a wheel would break. Your mom would die.
There's a lot of that.
You would like hunt buffalo to eat. And then it's like, you've taken on too much buffalo. It's like, oh crap, I overhunted. So it really was like a difficult game.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a click everything type of game.
Way before its time.
Yeah. Great game.
But back to Final Fantasy, obviously being a more advanced game.
Yeah.
I didn't know that they have like I'm reading this here, dishes like mushroom risotto. What?
Yeah.
In Final Fantasy?
Yeah. I would say anything that comes from Japan, they have a deep respect for accuracy to things like food or whatever it is, or they're very like intentional about what they do. Like there's never a time when it's just like, just throw some, just draw something and throw it in there. We don't care. Almost always it's tied to something that's real. And you'll see this a lot when we talk about like anime and stuff. And anyone that is on TikTok will probably have seen a cooking compilation of like people cutting food in anime, and it just looks so accurate. Or it looks
ASMR, right? So
Yeah,
it's
it's
real
ASMR.
food sounds, but like with cartoon kind of images.
Yeah, or they'll like do whatever they do in the sound booth to make it sound exactly like that.
Some Foley.
Yeah, some Foley. There you go. That's the term, Foley. But yeah, so there's like cafes in Tokyo where you can eat food from video games. There's like Kirby cafes, Mario cafes, and they'll just serve food that's like themed around it, or food that's like inspired directly by something in the game. But all of those games, especially again, if it's from Japanese culture, they do not mess around. They're not trying to make something that's not realistic or not accurate, if that makes sense. Like that matters to them.
But so when you're talking about going to a Kirby cafe or a Mario cafe or something like that, is the food even good? Have you been?
I haven't been to any in Japan. I've seen a lot of pictures. And again, if you've been on TikTok and you're in that world of stuff, you'll probably have seen like, I went to a Kirby cafe in Osaka, Japan, and here's the highlights type of video.
Yeah.
You know, you can see it playing already. It's the cameras, they walk up. And so it looks good.
Yeah.
As to the actual quality, it's probably like better than Disney food.
I was just going to get into that.
Food at Disney World or Disneyland.
No, like,
but it's not like a Michelin star restaurant, right?
Yeah.
It's probably not like a 4.5 star restaurant. It's probably between the 3.5 and 4.5 area in terms of quality of food.
On a scale of 5.
Yeah, because
in Japan,
they're also like, hey, it's a Kirby with like a Kirby imprinted on the bun of a burger. So like, it's not like it's like being created.
So it's just like a regular, probably decent burger with.
Yeah, or they'll do some other stuff. And if you look it up, they'll have lots of like small, like something about the cup is different. The way that they serve the French fries or whatever, it's like themed.
It's themed. It's not food from these things. It's a themed.
It's either heavily themed, although I'm pretty sure in some of the like Final Fantasy cafes, they'll have like, this is the risotto that so-and-so ate at this part of the game that did this. And it's just a
cool.
risotto.
I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Because if you compare that to something like, Harry Potter World.
Yeah.
Where they have like the same food that they eat in Harry Potter at the world.
Yeah.
It is trash.
It is trash
it's
at Harry
so
Potter
bad,
World.
Yeah,
I don't get why people want to get like turkey legs and stuff at Disneyland. And
it's not good.
It's just not good.
No.
And butterbeer is disgusting.
We were talking about that before. It's like a flat version of ginger beer.
And it's not just that, like the amount of processed fake sugar in that thing has to be in like 40 grams per cup or something.
Yeah.
It is nasty.
It's not the move.
And then you go on those rides where it's like mixed VR and mixed,
Dude,
like
I went
motion.
on one of those and
throw up.
in like 10 seconds, I was toast.
Yeah, the Gringotts were bank robbery in, I think it's Florida. I almost threw up 3 times.
Realized I get motion sickness by being on a Harry Potter.
Universal is one of the few theme parks that does this where they'll mix both like moving through a thing and then they'll stop and then show you a screen that is supposed to be 3D. So it is a lot for your brain to process if you're not used to that kind of thing.
It's a lot of visual stimulation.
Yeah, it's a lot of visual stimulation and your body's being jolted around on like these crane arms, like you're being attached to this mic stand that's like 500 times bigger or whatever.
Not the move. At least not for me. Some people like it.
Yeah,
those same people like butterbeer.
I'm the kind of person that will enjoy it once, and if it's really good, I'll go back, but I don't need to do it more than one time.
Yeah, it's not for me.
Yeah.
It's not for me. Speaking of Universal, we actually have some reviews here.
Of the Hollywood Universal Studios?
Is it the Hollywood one?
Yeah, I think so. They just opened up Super Mario Land. Super
right.
Nintendo Land, sorry, which is also opened in the Osaka one in Japan.
Yeah.
It's been like, I don't know, like a year or so since it's opened.
You'd think they'd figure it out.
Yeah, so should we read one of these reviews?
Yeah, take one.
This is from Juan from Fresno. They're in a Yelp Elite, which means they
pay for all of the attention.
Yeah. It means their opinion matters more.
Yeah.
Toadstool Cafe is an overhyped school cafeteria serving you subpar food. This place is not as cool as it could have been, and it's dirty. Sounds like America. The whole process to get in is extremely unorganized and lacking any structure. Sounds like a theme park. We ordered all 3 desserts, and all was just sweet and lacking any unique flavors. Okay, what'd you expect?
Hold on, just stop real quick. It's like, like this guy's going in like he's a food reviewer. It's like,
and they ordered 3
only
desserts.
3 desserts. Yeah, exactly.
What about the food?
Exactly.
The best dessert is the Mount Beanpole cake. The garlic knots are horrible, not worth it. Wait, when did the garlic knots get in there? They say they ordered 3 desserts. Garlic knots are not a dessert.
No, they're not.
The worst dessert was the Princess Peach cupcake, which was dry and tasted like any ordinary cupcake. This place is such a letdown, definitely not worth your time. Skip this place and save yourself a long wait. Just get horrible cafeteria food.
Yeah.
Okay.
Saying it's cafeteria food kind of nails it.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I wouldn't expect any more from a place like this.
Why
anyway.
would you? You're going to a place where they need
and also,
to...
Juan, you only ordered desserts and garlic knots. Like, no thanks.
Those garlic knots better have had cheese on them somewhere because, like, that's
no
just
kidding.
saying. I like a good garlic knot. This one's actually got 5 stars.
Wow.
Yeah, from Tiffany out of San Jose.
Okay.
We had a reservation for 2 p.m. and ordered and got our food around 2:35. That's pretty good service.
Yeah, for a crowded theme park. I think this is like right when it. Yeah.
Yeah, the wait wasn't as bad as I thought, so it was pretty worth it. We got the Power Up Spaghetti Marinara kids meal, Superstar Lemon Squash, Super Mushroom Soup, and Toadstool Cheesy Garlic Nuts.
Oh, cheesy garlic nuts.
Clearly, Tiffany knows how to order a regular balanced meal.
Good job, Tiffany.
Toadstool Cafe, probably my favorite meal at Universal. I got the kids meal since I can never finish my food, and it was perfect for me.
That was for her. Okay, cool.
She really faked the funk here. I would not get the cheesy garlic nuts again since it had no flavor and could barely taste the cheese or garlic.
Okay.
Overall, I would definitely be coming back to Toadstool Cafe in the future.
Also, Yelp Elite.
This one has way more likes. Just saying.
Yeah, she did a good job there.
Yeah.
It's an interesting comparison of reviews. And then there's Gloria, who has like a 3-star review. Is the food good? Not great, but the ambience is perfection. I love how nostalgic the cafe makes me feel. But nostalgic, right? That's a huge part of why people like this stuff. Is like reminds you of the time you watched the show growing up. That was like a big premise of Feast of Fiction. Is the nostalgia factor. The food is nothing spectacular or Michelin star worthy by any means. Okay,
shocker.
But you get to keep the bowl for the mushroom soup and all the little picks for the burger and dessert. Those are probably just wood. You should probably just throw those away. It was just fun to be immersed in all of the Nintendo Mario greatness. See? Immersion.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
I will note that Gloria and Tiffany both look to be Asian women, which is like the number one like demographic of reviewers on Yelp that care about it. That genuinely care. If you look on Yelp, especially in California.
Didn't your brother do like a whole thing about that?
He did something about 3.5-star reviews and how they're all BS and how it actually means that those are the restaurants you should go to.
Right.
Because they're almost always digging on those Asian restaurants for bad service.
Got it.
But the food is amazing. But like we expect such good service. As you know, I think Juan mentioned, he did not get great service.
Right.
So
the nostalgia factor here is, I think, the number one like takeaway, because that's why you're doing all this stuff. You're going to a video game cafe or a Feast of Fiction because it's bringing you back somewhere.
Yeah,
you know,
we love the stuff that we grew up with. Like, that was a huge part of our childhood. It was a huge part of my childhood, seeing those movies and a lot of the food that we did was like, oh man, I remember when I watched this on TV for the first time.
Yeah,
or saw this in the theater, like the Hook food fight.
Oh my god.
Like we did that for our cookbook, and it was more about recreating how it looked in the movie and stuff. But it was just tons of fun, and it was great having all these bright colored foods. And this is a recipe that people will not do at home because it requires you to make. You've done this before. Where you have to like 5 batches of 5 things with 5 different food colorings. It's all over your hands. You hate it.
Yeah, it stains.
It stains your marble countertop. But then afterwards, when you see it, it's like, oh, it looks so amazing to have these like bright colored foods that you would only get when you draw it in a cartoon or film it in a movie.
You think about the cafeteria style food, and then you think about other nostalgic food memories that are through the years, like Rainforest Cafe.
Oh, Rainforest Cafe.
Yeah, stuff like that, right?
Yeah, making
Chuck
food
E. Cheese.
fun.
Yeah, it's
Chuck E. Cheese is not fun food. Chuck E. Cheese is disgusting.
But you're not going to these places for the delicious, high quality food.
Totally.
You're going there because there's a gorilla that's serving you a soda.
Yeah, you hear like crickets or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Or like all of a sudden there's a rainstorm while you're eating your French fries. You know, like stuff like that. Same thing with a Mario inspired cafe. You're going there so that you can take the mushroom bowl.
Yeah, and you're like, oh my gosh, they played the music. Yeah. There was a mascot. Yoshi's outside. Yeah.
So I don't know. That's usually the way I think of that.
Yeah,
that sort of
nostalgia is a big one.
So we're talking about it like in a way where it's cafeteria style food, which obviously isn't high quality food.
Yeah.
If you think about it in like a capitalistic kind of view, is the reason the food is so shit because if it was a high quality, expensive meal, then the capitalistic view of it wouldn't actually happen. It wouldn't work because more people wouldn't go.
I mean, what do you expect when you go to a theme park? I remember when I first went to Disneyland, I was like, oh, I bet the food here is amazing. Yeah. And I was sorely disappointed.
Every time.
Yeah.
Still.
So maybe it's like you're already spending so much money on the ticket, plane ride, the hotel, and all that other stuff. It does feel kind of like, oh, what the heck? That at the end of it, the food is still priced like airport food, but it's awful. Yeah. And airport food, too, is awful.
Terrible.
So I don't know.
Even high quality restaurants in an airport sucks.
I guess you couldn't maybe you couldn't really get away by having an expensive, high quality Mario food restaurant because you would just want to pay money for a real, quote unquote, real restaurant with good food. But I don't know. Maybe I would go to that and enjoy it.
But then you think to yourself, like, well, maybe the food in Japan at like an anime cafe is actually pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I think for one, a lot of it boils down to in any restaurant is where are they getting their ingredients from?
Mm.
How processed is it before it gets to them? How fresh is it? And a lot of that's just based around the local infrastructure or the economy of how it works in those countries. In America, it's like you want to get something to the middle of the country, you got to truck it in or fly it in from somewhere else. And then might sit in a refrigerator or a freezer for 3 weeks, right? Like sometimes when you see them pulling out new food, quote unquote, new foods to prepare at like McDonald's or whatever, it's like they're coming from like a freezer
Yeah.
and they've been frozen, flash frozen for who knows how long and probably loaded with preservatives to make sure they don't go bad because the last thing that they want is for someone to get sick.
Yeah.
So I
Or
don't know.
for the food to go bad so they lose all the money.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like, yeah, they don't care enough because they just need to make a profit. And so the number one way you lose money is by paying too much for ingredients.
Right.
So you have to lower that cost before everything else.
So it's really just like they're drawing you in from the nostalgia
Yeah, and then they're serving you crap.
just to make the money.
Yeah, I mean, anyone that's been to Harry Potter World or any of these places, if you think their food is good, you probably need to not eat when you're really hungry.
Yeah, get your head checked.
Yeah, just like actually ask yourself if the food is good or if the ambience and the fact that they're playing the theme song right outside and there's an owl flying around like really makes you think, wow, this is so delicious.
I thought I was going to get a good meal. It's like a chicken dinner with like roasted vegetables. It was so trash.
You know, I did go to Disneyland in Shanghai and the food there was amazing.
That kind of makes sense to me.
I don't know if it was just a difference in how they prepared it or if they just had better quality ingredients because I guess they could source everything from internally.
Yeah.
Like in the country, they need to like fly other stuff in.
Right.
But it was amazing. I thought it
Same
was
menu or like
no,
similar?
completely different.
Yeah,
Menu.
okay.
We did a video about it and just tried to eat as much of the food as possible. You can get like mochi at the Japanese Disneyland. So it's like they're themed from what country you're in.
Got it.
So maybe because of that, they're able to do like more themed things because it was like noodle dishes and rice dishes.
It was more regional.
Yeah, so it was regional, and then maybe even the chefs knew how to prepare it better as well. There's could be
Right.
an element of that.
How hard is it to prepare a roasted chicken?
I don't know, dude. Where's
know?
that chicken coming from?
True.
That's what I gotta know.
GMOs all day.
Yeah,
Talking about movies,
film and TV and anime.
film, TV, anime. I mean, that's why I loved your show because it wasn't just video games. It was video games, but it was all fictional food.
Yeah, it's Feast of Fiction.
Right.
Most commonly misinterpreted name ever because people are always like, Jimmy, I love your show, Feast or Fiction. And it's like, yeah, you definitely don't watch it.
Yeah.
But it's,
We got that too. Epic Food Time?
Yeah. Originally we wanted to call it, I think we wanted to call it like fiction food or something.
Mhm.
It's just something that was just easier to remember. And then I don't know why, but we like went online and we're like, fiction food, is there anything? And there was like some small like post-production studio in the UK called Fiction Food or something, or Food Fiction. And we were like, can't name it that. Got to go with something else, which is just dumb if you think about it because
I liked Feast of Fiction. I thought it had a ring to it.
I like it too, but every single time someone said feast or fiction, I'm like, maybe we should have just named it like fiction food or food fiction or whatever. Because I was like, someone else already has this name. We can't do it. Which, as we know now, means nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Unless it's like Disney or Facebook.
Yeah.
You can totally name yourself because we ended up being way more popular than that company. I don't even know if that company's still around.
Right.
You know, so like we could have totally made that choice early on. But Feast of Fiction is what we stuck with, and it's okay. I like it too. FOF.
Yeah, FOF. But it was good because it opened it up. It wasn't just like you started with doing video games and then obviously you went on a tangent for all sorts of food fiction.
Yeah, we ended up doing a ton of anime food and video game food that's like heavily anime-ish inspired as well.
Yeah.
So like Studio Ghibli, we mentioned earlier, all of those movies have some of the best food animation clips ever. And
Is this like Spirited Away and stuff?
Spirited Away has it, Howl's Moving Castle, like almost every single Studio Ghibli film has a scene where someone is like ravenous and is like tearing into food. And when I watched these movies as a kid, even then I was like, oh my gosh, I need a freaking, I need that. And if you watch any of the anime compilations online, again, this is Japan. They really have attention to detail. They have this anime called Food Wars, Shokugeki no Sama.
Another one.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, but the recipes and the things and the techniques and the stuff they describe, it's like a food cooking competition type show, a fictional world. It's accurate. It's like 100% accurate. Like they do their research. They really make sure it's accurate. And then when they're cooking it or they're animating it, they're making sure that the fingers are like there's proper technique. You really feel, you see like the cuts of meat or whatever, and it like looks just delicious. Or they'll draw it in an anime way where that thick slice of bacon is like what you would dream about. It's like the size of your fist, how thick it is. And it's just perfect the way it like lays down, it starts sizzling and everything.
You know, as you're saying that, as you're talking about the accuracy of these, what do you call it? Japanime?
Yeah, just anime.
Anime?
Japanese animation.
Japanese animation?
Yeah.
It's like you're talking about the accuracy. You're talking about a cartoon essentially being like so accurate with like the way they're holding the knife, the cuts, whatever. Sure, it's embellished a little bit. It's a piece of bacon that's probably thicker than normal.
Yeah, totally.
But while you were saying that, I was like, it's so funny because you look at like old school Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
When they would eat the pizza.
Oh, yeah.
Like that pizza never looked real.
That's a great comparison, by the way.
You know what I mean? Like they would
that.
take the pizza and they would just like shove it and like swallow it.
Yeah. It would be the drippiest. The cheese
so
pull.
drippy.
So good.
Yeah. It was a drippy pizza. But like
Yeah.
that's the difference between then and now. Like the evolution of all of this is wild. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You look at an old movie, food based, like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, for example.
Great movie. Tons of ridiculous food in there.
Stuff that's so not legit. Like, first of all, chocolate doesn't
not
look
FDA
like water.
Approved.
But like the chocolate river, like
chocolate river, yeah.
at what point does chocolate look like water?
Yeah.
You know?
On the movie set.
Correct. So like it's interesting to use that to compare to where we're at now with the attention to detail. Final Fantasy actually having like even saying things like mushroom risotto in a video game. Like,
dude, just watch Food Wars. Well, don't just watch Food Wars because it's very graphic in certain areas. They really embellish certain parts of it that are like, oh gosh, I hope no one's looking at me while I watch this. But the recipes, if you just like go on YouTube and just look up Food Wars best recipes, you'll get blown away by like, oh my gosh, that is like legitimately an amazing thing that they're doing. This technique is like a French thing, blah, blah, blah. It's like all real, all researched. They like, you know, they do like things like terrines. Do you know what a terrine is? Terrine. It's like a multiple layer, like sliver thing where you like create like 5 different recipes into like basically like cat food type looking stuff. Okay. It's ridiculous. It's like a real thing. And they'll just like make it as like the centerpiece of a whole episode. So they're always innovating and doing some crazy stuff there.
I like that. I like that a lot. You know, like we're talking about Japanese anime and we're comparing it to, I mean, in theory, like was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was an American, was a Western.
For sure.
Right?
Super Western, yeah.
And you look at that as a contrast, it kind of bleeds into a way deeper conversation of not only, you know, the accuracy between these two fictional like examples of food.
Yeah.
But then you kind of bring it to this Western food
versus
everyone else.
Everyone else? Yeah.
Right? Like this corporate capitalistic look at food here in North America versus food in other countries like Japan.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of wild when you think about that, right?
It is wild. I think again, to me, it all boils down to like respect. Like Japanese culture is a very respectful culture. American culture is a bit less respectful, I would say. Yeah, just a little more raw. Yeah, we're the culture of thrasher and tattoos and places
and consumption.
And consumption, yeah. And just, go big or go home, drive your truck, shoot a gun, eat a 24-ounce ribeye.
But do you think that bleeds into the example we were talking about before of
with
like
the pizza?
Not only that, but like the cafes.
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
You know?
I mean, yeah. So I've been to like Japan. I've been to Disney World, Disneyland in Japan. I've been to different parks there. And I would say even the food there is slightly higher quality than you find in American parks. Again, it boils down to, like respect for food and what it does for you. Like, what is the purpose of food? It is to nourish the body. It is to create a gathering or an experience. And I think you find that a lot with both how it's displayed in animation and also just like the food culture in Japan is much more on that bar. Like even if you like go to a restaurant in Japan, and not just Japan, like China and stuff too, like the focus is on the food. And the focus is also a lot in Japan on the service. In China, they're like, we don't care that much about service. We just care about the food. But a lot of it is, again, like, why are you there? What's the purpose of this? To nourish yourself, to like treat yourself to something that tastes good, to help you feel better. Like if food has medicinal qualities. In America, it definitely is a little bit more like, now you're just slamming a burger in at 4 a.m. because you got the munchies and you want to go to Jack in the Box or whatever.
Yeah.
So
fast,
it is,
and you want it fast.
Yeah, and you want it fast, and it wants to be greasy and fried and just like filled with calories.
Yeah.
So I think there's like a fundamental difference in how we look at food and what it does for us, and then that probably has a way to eventually reflect itself in the media.
Right. That's what I was getting at. That's a good way to button it up, because like it's obviously represented in the anime, in the cartoons, in the fiction.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and if you look at a movie like Spirited Away, like her parents get tricked into like eating this big buffet of all of this like really rich food in this spiritual ghost town, and they get turned into literal giant pigs. Like that is like the message. They're overconsumptive. They are eating so much out of their own means. And in that same movie, she like is later on, she's like crying in the field and gets like a rice ball that she eats, and she's like sobbing while eating it. And it's like, oh, this is what's meant to, like, it's a very simple thing compared to like, so there's like a lot of symbology as well behind it.
That is very symbolic.
It's pretty deep. And not to say that American media doesn't have like amazing consumption of food. We've got all these movies like Chef.
Yeah.
And then you have, what was that Bradley Cooper one that he did?
Bird.
Yeah, right? Like,
and then, you know, the newest,
yeah.
The Bear.
Lace and Grace, The Bear. Yeah. So there's definitely a deep respect in American culture for food. But I would say overall, Americans aren't like, oh, I need to make sure that this thing is great. Like, I'll watch these videos of like a mom preparing food for her kid in the morning, and it's like packaged glazed donuts, like sugary cereal. It's like not real food, right?
I was talking about that with my friends last weekend about how like a donut is essentially considered a breakfast food.
Ridiculous.
A pancake.
Cereal
waffles.
is considered breakfast food.
God,
There's nothing
cereal.
nutritional about any of this
It's
stuff.
a bowl of sugar.
Yeah.
How about just in general drinking milk?
Yeah, drinking milk. But if you go and look for like moms preparing bento boxes for their kids in Japan, and you'll be just astounded at the difference. And then look up like what a typical like elementary school food, like public school food is for someone in America, and you're just like,
it's wild.
No wonder we have the problems that we have in front of us.
I have my friend, her name's Jess Wu. She makes, we call her the bento box mom.
That's cool.
She has three girls, and she makes them bento boxes every day, and she's like cutting out little pieces of like flour apples and
incredible,
making these like
mad respect. Yeah, because that's a lot of work.
Not only is it a lot of work, not only mad respect, but it's a lot healthier than giving your kid a Lunchable.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, for sure. And
just because there's like a Ninja Turtle on it.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, I used to eat Lunchables.
Yeah, I mean,
I used to eat a lot of trash growing up. I'm amazed that I'm alive based on the like, because I used to go to McDonald's like 2-3 times a day when I was younger, man.
We grew up with the worst food in the early 90s.
There's also an argument to say that the food that we grew up back then actually had better ingredients than today, because it's just been finding ways to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper.
And more convenient.
Yeah, more
and all these
convenient.
things. You're not wrong about that, for sure. Not to throw like, you know, anyone under the bus, but wouldn't you say that like the Chinese culture in culinary kind of holds their food and people a little higher standards than Americans?
Chinese food culture is like one of the deepest topics you could go into. We're talking thousands of years of history, like hundreds of minority groups, massive country, all with different regional things that they do.
Yeah.
American is like, what is American food? Give me some words that describe American or types of American food.
Just words to describe it?
Not describe it, just like actual, what is quote unquote American food? If you were telling someone from another country.
I would say it's big food.
So yeah, you got like pizza, burgers, fries, steaks,
fried chicken.
Yeah, like America is like a country that didn't have its own food culture. It just created all these things, and then that became it.
I don't even want to go down this road right now.
Yeah,
because like there's a lot to
it's not like
unpack with that. What is America?
Yeah,
you
like
know?
The closest we get in California is like, oh, well, there's a lot of Mexican culture here, so there's a lot of Mexican food. There's a lot of like, what are the things that naturally grow out of the earth around here? Avocados. Oh, what does that create dish-wise?
Yeah.
But other than that, American food is just like sandwiches, bread and meat, cheese. It's like not that refined, I guess.
Yeah, you're 100% right. It's also not that different from any other place. It's just packaged differently, because if you think about it, like cheesy pasta here, there's not cheesy pasta, but there's certainly noodles
Right.
in Asia, for example. Avocados and steak, like that's available in South America.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just the way, I think it's the way it's packaged here, which
And there's just more history. Because in China, you'll be like, oh, well, there's like a regional spice. There's a specific kind of pepper that we use here.
Mhm.
Or in Japan, it's like, well, this is a yam that grows out of the ground in this area only. And we've figured out 20 different ways to cook it and make it.
Yeah.
Look at sushi. Sushi is like a beautifully wrapped present of fish on rice.
so
And
simple.
You could just have, you could have that same piece of fish and same thing of rice in America. And they would just be like, slap it together, put it into a plastic container and sell for way too much.
And then batter it.
Yeah, batter it,
Call
deep fry it.
Call it tempura.
Yeah. Deep fry it.
What's an
Make
American?
it spicy for some reason.
Exactly. Or sweet.
Yeah, or sweet.
What's an American spice? Everything bagel seasoning.
Ooh, delicious.
Right? That's an American
That's
spice.
an American spice, yeah.
So
Ketchup.
ketchup. Oh my God.
Ketchup and mayonnaise.
I
Heinz
love ketchup and I love mayonnaise, but like when you break it down,
It's sugar.
it's pure sugar. It is pure sugar.
Ketchup is just straight up red sugar.
Yeah.
Some people say that French fries are actually a ketchup delivery service.
I mean,
Like it's not about the fry, it's about the ketchup.
I like mayonnaise on my French fries.
I like mixing mayonnaise and ketchup.
I love mayonnaise. I don't care what anyone says. Like I fucking love mayonnaise.
It's nice.
It's
all
like,
right.
it's okay.
You know what? Homemade mayonnaise and homemade ketchups, though, or like when a restaurant has their own, like, this is our ketchup. To me, I'm like, oh, I love that.
It's like eating something for the first time.
yeah.
Like what is this condiment?
You're like, wait a minute, why has it got texture in it?
Yeah.
My ketchup, I'm used to it being as smooth as a baby's butt.
Yeah, and candy.
Yeah, my kid loves ketchup
If
because
you-
it's all sugar.
If you melt down fruit by the foot and you add a little salt,
You've got ketchup.
It's ketchup.
Yeah. Delicious.
So, in closing, what would be your ultimate, most sought after thing that you would want to consume from something fictional?
Something fictional?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like if you had anything could be made, you could have anything. What would it be?
Oh my gosh, what a question.
I know what it would be personally.
Oh, go. You go first.
I would love to nosedive into a river of chocolate.
Oh, some Willy Wonka stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do love the Willy Wonka food because it gives you superpowers, which is like, what?
Fizzy lifting drink?
Yeah, fizzy lifting drink. I definitely would. Yeah, I think I like that a lot. I kind of do want to try the cheesy, goopy pizza from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Right.
Because that cheese looks so good.
Drippy like that?
So drippy.
Damn.
That's like the best cheese pull in the universe of cheese pulls.
The only problem with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle pizzas is the combinations were so wild.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
chocolate syrup and anchovies. Your favorite.
Yeah. And then Spirited Away just has a ton of great food in it.
Yeah.
They have feasts all over the place.
They do.
So there's some. And then I read these books called the Redwall series growing up, and that was like one of the original inspirations for the channel too. And the way they describe food in that book is incredible.
Really?
Yeah.
Redwall?
Redwall. Yeah. It's
Hmm.
about like little. It was like mice and other creatures like being knights and stuff and fighting against the evil weasels and all that stuff. Yeah, it's cool.
Where did that come from?
Where'd the books come from?
Yeah.
From someone's imagination, a guy named Brian Jacques.
Is it like an American thing?
Yeah. I think it's an American thing, or maybe it's a European thing. But it's like it was a long, ongoing book series.
Love that.
Yeah.
Dude, I love that you came and had this conversation with me.
Thank
Who
you.
better to talk about fictional food than you?
Then
honestly.
me.
Yeah.
The one and only.
You're not doing Feast of Fiction anymore, but you are still making content regularly.
Yes.
You want to tell the
correct.
people what you are currently up to?
Yeah. If you want to see the culmination of 10 years of Feast of Fiction, we made a cookbook. It's called the Feast of Fiction Cookbook. Please buy it. We didn't make any money on it. It came out right when the pandemic hit, and that was a bad idea. So if you want a book that's a great table topper, or just like good for anyone that if this entire episode made you, and you think of like, oh, my cousin loves this sort of thing, the cookbook's a great
It really
gift.
is.
Yeah. it's
How
a
many
great
how many recipes in it?
gift.
At least 50.
At least 50. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think 50 plus, maybe 55 or something.
Love
The number
that.
changed a lot towards the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is like the culmination of all the work that we did. So I really enjoyed that book and making it with Ashley. So if you like that sort of stuff, do that. Otherwise, yeah, I podcast a lot about a card game called Magic the Gathering. If you're into that, you'll probably like the show I do there.
I mean, aren't you like the number one Magic the Gathering kind of like adjacent show in the world?
I would say that we are by far the biggest.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a couple people that are close, but we're like the most popular.
Close isn't the biggest. Okay.
And well known. In terms of like making gameplay content too, one of the big shows we do is called Game Nights, where it's 4 people sitting around the table and just playing the game. That's like a huge popular show that we do.
Yeah.
We've had people like Post Malone come on and play, like celebrities, Joe Manganiello, athletes. Yeah, just like a lot of people that just happen to love Magic the Gathering.
And a lot of people do.
Yeah, it turns out
like
it's a very popular game.
Yeah.
And then outside of that, my acting career, I did a movie called Mulan, the live action, during which when I filmed it, that was when Josh was like the stepping in co-host of the show, because I was gone for like 6 months.
Yep.
And then I also was the main voice in this movie called Wish Dragon, which is on Netflix, which is
a newer movie.
Yeah,
right?
newer movie. If anyone that has a kid between the age of like 5 and 12, I hear it's a hit. The kids love it.
Awesome.
So if you just need another piece of content to throw in front of them, Wish Dragon, it's a good one.
Love that, man. Dude,
Thanks.
Thank you so much for coming over.
Thank you for having me.
Heck yeah.
Heck yes.